Welcome you to Richmond Raceway, the world's shortest super speedway. My name is Arjuna Kankipati, joined alongside in this virtual commentary booth by Sumil Arora, and we're here for round 7 of the IndyCar iRacing Series. We reached the end of the month of June and the series just about to tick over the halfway point, and it's Hugo Olsen who continues to lead. The Power Slide Motorsports driver is here tonight at Richmond. He missed the last race at Road America, but here to try and secure a win in a strong field. We've got about 24 cars, and Sumo, 4 races so far, and it's been a fairly entertaining run for us so far.
Yes, indeed. All the races that we've seen so far, they've been fairly caution-filled. They've been filled with a lot of action, but in the end, they have been entertaining for sure. This one at Richmond, well, it's a track that's around quarter mile, so passing over here is going to be a bit tricky. But trust me, when the going gets tough over here, the best drivers come out in the end, and the sort of action that you get to see over here can be quite fun.
Yeah, absolutely. It's sometimes got a reputation for cautions, but you know, the D shape, the extra banking definitely lends itself to top speeds, and you know, for such a short track, it's one that, you know, 15-second lap times in its peak, and you know, that's a crazy prospect to really think about.
Exactly, the drivers are going at insane speeds over here, and what can actually happen is that it's a pretty tough track to pass around at times, and the second lane can be worked at times, but going to the third one, well, making moves over there can be a bit tricky, and it's a circuit where your momentum plays a huge role, and you'll often see drivers taking a very smooth line through, because in short speedways like this one, you don't really want to go completely making major steering movements like that, because that could completely wreck your lap time and put your tires under some unnecessary pressure. So the driving is going to be very smooth. The drivers need to be using their momentum, and in the end, if that happens, you could see some good battles over here between multiple people, especially Hugo Olsen, who comes in as the championship leader.
Yeah, but unfortunately, all the way down in 10th place right now, there you can see on the left-hand side of your screen the current qualifying order. It is Andreas Eick for Team Talent, and that Monday night IndyCar Open race, this is one of the other series that gets run on the iRacing service. The Team Talent setup was one of the very strong setups. Adam Crane is in second, Marco Brazil in third, and there you can see there's some familiar faces, but also some newer names here, Sumo, because, you know, Richmond Raceway maybe not as popular as some of the other tracks, but it does mean we get some newer faces who show up in these splits.
Yes, indeed, and that just adds another variable into the series. Of course, when you have new drivers coming in, you get to see new driving styles and a certain degree of aggression that you normally won't expect from the regular series. So, Arjuna, I think it's about time the cars are gridding up, and let's see who's competing in this one.
Yeah, it's time to take a look at the starting grid, and there you go. It is Andreas Eick on pole position, a 15.092. So these top speeds very, very quick here. And you've got Adam Crane, Team Misfit Racing, and then Marco Aurelio Brazil, 10 Factory Sim Racing. Lining up next to him is going to be Cesar Manzado.
Then we move on to Andrew Zedwood, starting in P5, with John Downing right behind him. Jesper Orman starts this race in P7, with Dan Ench starting this one in P8.
Yeah, then we go back to Tim Doyle and the championship leader all the way back in 10th position. There is Hugo Olsen. Then you've got Robin Glennox, and then Rashad Craig, who lines up in 12th.
After that, we move up to Daniel Noventa, starting this one in P13 with Eric Winter, one of the regulars, in P14. Laura Gerhardt starts this one in P15 for Powerslide Motorsports, and Matt Huston, well, he has to settle with P16 here.
Go back Charles Ante, Jesse Yakar, Henry Rescorn, and then Jason Wallett, and we'll quickly scroll through the last couple of rows. Got Niall McBride making an appearance in the series. David Soranzo second in the championship. It's going to have a long way to go. And then you got Stefan Walder, a Twitch streamer, making an appearance here. And then Luis Gonzalez Nunez is going to round out your 24 car field. There you can see there is the pole position winner, Andreas Eick. And Sumo, what are you expecting here? We got 225 laps. We can quickly talk about the fuel window here. It's about 80, so, you know, if we do go green, there is some potential for interesting strategy, because obviously at a short track, you're going to go 1, if not 2 laps down if you come in under green.
Exactly, and that could just work things around quite a bit. You know, normally going a lap down here at Richmond isn't really a major issue, but when you go 2 or 3 laps down, that's when the trouble begins. And now, if you notice these cars, they're in with the short oval layout, the short oval aero kit. Now, it's a bit of a hybrid between the road course and the fast oval ones. So although you do have a bit of downforce, as you can see with the front wings, it's not entirely oriented exactly like the road course one. So you will be still seeing the cars going pretty quick over here at the short speedways with quite a high top speed as well. Overall, I think if you get caught up in lap traffic, as the leaders might be because it's only a quarter-mile circuit, things could be rather tricky over here because working your moves around can be pretty tough. So in the end, I think managing out a strategy well and staying clean is going to be the key to success. I hope it's going to be a good one.
Yeah, something I'm very curious to see here is what Adam Crane does. He's moved his way up into 3rd place in the championship. He's going to come into this one 2nd place on the grid, and you have Hugo Olsen, who apparently hit the wall in qualifying, so that potentially explains that 10th place position on the grid. But you also have David Soranzo all the way down in 22nd. He's going to have a lot of work to do. But 2 pace laps here, and it is going to be Team Talent's Andreas Eick who takes us to the green. As we get ready, and you know, Sumo, you can see on the front of that car, I'm pretty convinced that Andreas only got the pole because that RaceBot logo on that nose cone gave him just that little bit extra horsepower.
Haha, exactly. We always have a running joke saying that if you have the RaceBot logo on your car, you get 3/10 off your lap. But for Andreas Eick, there's a bit of that and his own ability as well.
It's a great shot from the rear of the pace truck as it pulls off into pit lane. Andreas Eick just backing up the field just a little bit, and there we go away. And there you can see already just how stacked up everyone has gotten. And Marco Brazil going to try and get to the inside of Adam Crane, already up into 2nd position. There you can see the field all just working their way in so far. We're going to complete this first lap very quickly. A 17-second lap this first time around for your leader. And we are going green this first time around.
A rather clean and easy first lap for everyone involved over here. It gets pretty easy over here. But the thing is, 17 seconds a lap, as you rightly mentioned. Normally you would think that this race would go in and finish off in a flash, but what happens here at Richmond is because making moves here is so tricky, as we're seeing one being made, cautions can come out and that can make the race far longer. Here he comes, Rashad Craig, that is trying to go around the outside, getting into P14. that sticks behind and has to wait for this one. Arjuna, momentum here is going to be the key to get the moves done, isn't it?
Yeah, and that was Matt Houston making the move up into 14th place, so already you can see track position very important. We've managed to get 4 laps so far without a caution though, and you can already see the importance of clean air. Because Andreas Eich, he's already started to check out. We can go back though, Andrew Wood, he's trying to challenge Adam Crane, and this is where Andrew Wood, obviously running a very similar setup to his teammate, who's currently leading the race, just unable, Sumo. You talk about momentum, but when you have the dirty air as a move going on in the background, that's Cesar Manzado and John Downing, but currently Andrew Wood just trying to find some momentum, rolling the high side.
Exactly, and that high side up there, it may or may not work. Look at these guys, they're trying to go 3 wide for a second over there. And trust me, at Richmond, that probably never works out. Now, thankfully, they have come out in single file, but guess what, Arjuna? We have a caution within the first 7 laps. Wow.
Yeah, and that's a big one there, you can see.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, that's Jesse Jakar making a debut in the series, and oh no! Oh, I've just noticed that David Soranzo, championship contender, is also involved in this one. We'll go ahead and grab a replay right now on your screen, but already early in this race, and some big drama here. We're taking a look. That is Jesse Jakar getting clipped around there. And nasty impact there.
He just gets launched into the air, and that sort of thing can happen. There's barely any room at this circuit. So when you try to go a bit too aggressive, well, this is the end result that you are looking for. And all the other cars doing a good job to avoid them. Oh my goodness, David Soranzo coming in with barely anywhere for him to go. Now, normally when you're traveling at such high speeds, your reaction times need to be superb. But when you've got cars hogging in 3 lanes, trust me, it becomes next to impossible to avoid that one.
Yeah, very unfortunate. But that's the issue, Sumo, when you don't qualify in these races all the way down in 22nd, and he's gotten caught out. And second place in the standings, you have Adam Crane, who's going to be in 3rd. That's going to be very good for him. And Sumo, you do expect cautions at Richmond, but you know, we got a little bit of a green flag run there and a little tease at the front of just how important clean air is, because Adam Crane seemingly struggling just a little bit. And Andrew Wood was really piling on the pressure right before that one.
Exactly, and with these particular cars in the short ovals, understeer that can actually originate from dirty air, that is your worst enemy. You want to keep your steering movements as stable and as smooth as possible, and when understeer comes in, you'll notice that mid-corner the car just likes to slide away from the racing line, and that's when you lose a whole lot of time. So for these drivers, making sure that they're in the clean air could be literally the holy grail of making sure that they can win this race. So yeah, things can get a bit tricky, but if you get ahead, if you get up front, you can literally ensure that you can win this race rather well, because the clean air, it can pay off. But on the downside as well, because it's such a short track, you could encounter traffic rather quickly. So in the end, you may not always be having the luxury of clean air all the time.
Absolutely. When you have a 15-second lap, you encounter traffic fairly quickly, and it's going to take a little bit of a run to get there. But the important thing here is that I think slowly we'll start to just eliminate more and more cars from the field. We currently have 3 cars who have been in the pit lane for a while. That's Jesse Jakar, Jason Wallet, and David Soranzo. So 3 of the cars who were involved in that incident. We've had a few cars come down pit lane. Laura Gerhardt, Luis Gonzalez, Nunes, Stefan Walder. But Sumo, this is where you start to think about the effect of the pit strategy. Because if you have these repeating cautions that keep happening, the drivers out front, they don't want to have those cautions, because we go back to the clean air topic. They don't want to lose that clean air because of these cautions.
Exactly, and I have a feeling that these caution runs, they will actually dictate the strategy quite a bit. Now, we saw this in Texas. For 3/4 of the race, in fact, the entire race was dictated by the caution pit stops. Most of the drivers felt that it was quite safe to pit under the yellow flag, because they knew for a fact that the racing was so aggressive that the yellow flag would come out sooner than later. So that's what happened. Eventually, we got a green flag run towards the end, and that's when the pit strategy actually came into picture. But I really have a feeling that something very, very similar could be happening here at Richmond tonight. So don't expect a lot of variations in terms of strategy. Of course, certain drivers can go in for a gamble and roll the dice and see what happens. But primarily, I expect most of these drivers to stick by the yellow flag pit stops. And that could actually define the way this race goes on.
Yeah, and someone in our YouTube chat just talking about how tricky turn 2 is, and we haven't mentioned it just yet, but just to please the chat audience, that turn 2 bump is very tricky just coming off the banking transition. So, shot to Klutz in our chat over there. We'd like to see some proof of that. You can always tweet us at RaceBotTV. And something new, Sumo, I do believe you're using it now, but actually we're going to go green, but we can talk about it later because our new timing is available, timing71.org. It's a very powerful timing suite, but Andreas Ike going to lead us back to the green, and Marco Brazil has slotted himself up into second place now. Here we go, back to the green flag, 12 laps done. It's the Team Talent driver taking us away. Adam Crane slowly losing out again because Andrew Wood has also jumped him here. And he's now got both John Downing and Tim Doyle behind. Now Tim, not necessarily a regular in the IndyCar Series, but a very strong oval driver, occasionally pops into these races, and Sumo has now worked himself up into 5th place.
Yes, indeed, and that's quite a good result for him. But the question is, for how long can he actually maintain that? Because we've got so many other drivers right on his tail, John Downing especially. And look at that, Andrew Wood has just clocked in an overall best lap of 849, my apologies. And that could just be coming down rather soon with the track temperatures dropping in and these cars coming into a good momentum. Marco Brazil, well, this is one driver who I love to speak about because I don't know whether they actually have a lot of speedways in Brazil. But Marco, he just goes around. And in these oval races, he just extracts another level of performance that not many other drivers can do that. He was phenomenal in Texas. Of course, certain things here and there not working according to him. But he's here back in Richmond, and he's doing quite a good job here in P2.
Yeah, we ride on board. Just taking a look from the back, you can see there is Andrew Wood. Oh, and the caution is out again. So we only got a few laps into that run, and we're going to have to wait and see who it is. I'm not exactly sure. I don't see... Here we go again on my screen, but Sumo, caution once again.
Exactly, here we go again. We just had a friendly chat for all the viewers. Me and Arjuna were just sitting down before this race and discussing what could potentially happen for this one. And the one common word that we had in mind, as we see the iRacing marshal desperately waving the yellow flag, was caution. And with 20 laps already in, and they're rather quick laps over here at Richmond, we've already seen 2 cautions. This one, well, the driver in picture, Rashid Craig, once again, Arjuna, losing it all on his own.
Yeah, and I don't actually think the cause of the caution was the initial spin, but potentially the rejoin, because the spin came just a little bit before the caution came out. We did have a pit stop while we were taking a look at the replay, though, Sumo, because... Oh, no, never mind, because once again, my timing screen is just lying to me. It's trying to do that now, Sumo, because it told me Marco entered pit lane, but there you can see, definitely still second on track. It'd be a little early to come down pit lane, given what we were just talking about.
Yeah, the pitch strategy is usually far longer than this one, and as I mentioned previously, a lot of these drivers will not make any green flag pit stops because it just doesn't make any sense. If you are kind of getting this sort of action consistently, they know for a fact that they can actually bet on the yellow flag and actually make their moves. But what can actually happen at this stage is when a green flag run materializes eventually, these drivers can be a bit confused. Now, on one side, they'll be thinking, should I sit back and wait for a yellow flag, or should I actually go for a green flag pit stop? And these sort of things can actually diversify the race quite a fair bit. But I think it's too early for that. 21 laps in, and Arjuna, we already have 2 cautions, and I kind of have a feeling that this will go on for quite a long while.
Probably quite a long while indeed, and we were coming back to green flag when I finally got to mention it, but live timing is available, timing71.org. There you can see bottom right-hand corner of your screen. If you want to go straight to this event, you can go timing71.org/s/racebot. That will take you straight to the event page for this. And Sumo, the reason that we really looked into this as a service, as a broadcaster, is, Radio Le Mans, the partnership with VCO and the special events that we've been broadcasting together. They introduced us to this tool and its iRacing integration, and it's really cool to be able to have all of this data available to us as broadcasters.
Yeah, and the guys at Radio Le Mans and VCO, those guys are absolute legends when it comes to broadcasting. And of course, here at RaceSpot, we do maintain quite a good quality, but we're just trying to learn a little bit more. and actually trying to understand things as they go on. So this timing tool should help us a lot, and it should also offer you, the fans, a very good idea about what's actually going on a track. So things could get far better, and you can actually get a much better idea of what the actual racing action is all about, including the strategy, for how long the drivers have been in the car, which could come in very handy in an endurance race. But for this one, it's primarily more on what's happening on the track. And for now, it's all the cars just waiting in line, sitting patiently behind the pace truck, I should say, and just waiting for the flag to go green so that we can be back with some more quick-paced racing action.
And just to give all of you an update on the pit strategy, everyone 16th place and above has not pitted, but there are quite a few drivers below that who have come down pit lane. So Laura Gerhard, I do believe one of the drivers making 2 stops, Stefan Waldher as well. So we've had a few pit stops, mostly drivers at the back. I do believe it's worth it to just come down at this point, 23 laps into what would normally be an 80 lap fuel window. And Sumo, I think we're going to go green this time around, but let's see how it goes, because Andreas Eick going to once again just lead us back to green flag racing. I think it's going to be interesting what happens to Adam Crane here. It's Tim Doyle who's going to be lining up behind him this time, but here we go. Back to green flag racing.
Eick once again maintaining his presence at the front. Brazil still behind him. All the other cars are going single file over here, but look at that battle that we see back here for P5, if I'm not mistaken. These, oh my goodness, they're getting properly nose to tail. I think that's the Bombshell Motorsport car, if I'm not mistaken. These guys are closing up to each other. This is Adam Crane and Tim Doyle once again for P4, and just look at the gap closing down ever so closely.
Yeah, and on this restart, Adam able to hold off, and Tim Doyle trying to just build up the momentum, trying to find a way, someone who is finding some ways past, and this time around the outside, I do believe that's a pass on Robin Glenix. That's Hugo Olsen, so starting back in 10th position. He's up in 7th now, and got a little bit of a gap to overcome now. You can see the train behind him. Robin Glenix, a little bit of a cork in the bottle, if you will, and you ride on board there. You can see the gap all the way to Sade Sim Autosport driver, so championship leader Hugo Olsen just going to slowly try and cut away at that gap right now. But in that lead group, it's still Adam Crane who's got to deal with Tim Doyle, and also now, look at that, Team Talent trying to go for the 1-2 here because Andrew Wood to the inside.
Here he comes, using the momentum, sweeps down low and gets the position well and truly properly. But guess what, Arjuna? There's another car spinning around. Thankfully, we don't have a caution. That was a major incident, it seems.
I believe that was Charles Ante who you saw spun around there. Fortunately, no caution. But here we go, riding on board with Adam Crane now, because look at the gap. It's really just checked up quite a bit. You can see, I'm trying to figure out exactly which lapped car that is that Andreas Eick is having to deal with, but here goes Adam Crane to the inside, and Marco Brazil, he had got himself up into 2nd, and now really starting to struggle, Sumo.
Yeah, things are getting a bit tricky for him, but remember, it's a fairly long race, this one. 225 laps, and we're already only into 31 laps. So for Brazil, yeah, he's somewhat of a speedway expert, so to say. He can actually make things up quite quickly later on, but for now, I think he seems to be playing the long game and sitting behind is taking the drop. Although that may not be as much of a factor here at Richmond, which is a fairly short track, but he's still understanding the thing. And look at how wide he goes, almost clipping the wall over there. That high line, Arjuna, may not always work.
It may not, and obviously one of the interesting things about this track in iRacing is that you don't have the same downforce restrictions as you would in real life. So I believe in real life this would be a single plane track. We run much higher levels of downforce, and there you can see Marco just getting a little bit tight, losing quite a lot of momentum on the exit of that corner. And these guys really losing time. There goes Tim Doyle to the inside, and he's going to get the move done before he even gets to the corner, because I think at this point, Sumo, Marco has realized that he's just got to find some clean air, and he can't afford to just be fighting side by side, lap after lap.
But when you're racing at a circuit which is only, what, a quarter of a mile, clean air is a bit of a luxury. Because you've got so many cars, because they're all so closely knit to each other, finding clean air, which is, I think, the only person finding it is Andreas Eick at this stage, that's going to be a major problem for Brazil. So he quickly needs to realize that I need to get my game back up and I need to be making the moves to get back up the order, because at this stage it's not really working out for him and he's not even in the clean air. And Andreas Ike right now is under some pressure from Andrew Z. Wood, and this one is for the lead.
It's for the lead and it's between teammates. Doesn't show it on your graphics, but Andrew is a Team Talent member, and we had red versus purple last time at Road America. This time it's red versus brown, and Andrew has the fastest lap of this race so far. They're about 0.8 of a second slower than they were in qualifying, but put on a lot of fuel, add in a little bit of draft, and there you can see just a little bit of pace difference. But there you go. That's what happens. You talk about momentum, Sumo. Andrew's really found some.
Exactly, he's been sticking down low, he's been keeping to his racing lines, steering movements as smooth as ever, and look at them go side by side. Wood making the move stick this time out, and I think that momentum is coming into picture, Arjuna, as now Ike needs to get something done to get back. Of course, there's still a lot of time left, but he would certainly he certainly wants to satisfy his pride and get back into the lead as soon as possible.
Indeed, and now that gap is already starting to rise, and now that Andrew's in clean air, let's see how he adjusts on his in-car tools, because this series not only open setup, but just a reminder, you have the full use of the in-car tools, which includes the front and rear ARBs, and additionally the weight jacker just to move the weight along the axis of the car. So just a lot of tools to use in dirty air, and the gaps are starting to form. But now Andreas Ike no longer in the lead, and Tim Doyle, you can see he's at the rear of a 3-car train. There's Adam Crane as well in the middle. That's a 3-car fight for second.
Well, this battle is probably heating up over here. Now, Marco Brazil is soon going to join this one as well. You'll probably see these guys going 2 wide. 3 wide is a bit of a luxury here, but if you can get it done, the racing should be fun. Here comes the move for P4, that is, if I'm not wrong. PP3, sorry, yeah.
Yep, that was Adam Crane getting passed by Tim Doyle. Tim Doyle being very aggressive here, using all the momentum he has and just checking Adam up a little bit more, and Tim moving himself into a podium position and now getting to work on Andreas Ike. And Sumo, let's look at that gap, because it was about 0.3 of a second last time we checked in, and Andrew Wood, he's run away 1.6 seconds now.
The word that he used over there, checked in, it seems like Andrew Wood has just checked out of the hotel and is saying, right, I'm done with Richmond. I have properly dominated this one. He is just annihilating the rest of the field. That gap has just grown in so much. Of course, if he can keep this up, he is going to head in towards a victory. But remember, long race once again, and more competitors are coming right here as we see Ike under a lot of pressure over here.
Under a lot of pressure, and he's just lost out for second. He got a little bit tight up into the wall. Lost a little bit too much momentum, and Tim Doyle now up into second place, and let's see what he can do now, because that gap had built up, and Andrew's now having to deal with a bit more traffic, and that's all it takes at some point. But Andreas Ike, your pole position winner, he's now back into third, and I was about to say Adam Crane just falling off the pace a little bit, but Tim Doyle getting released there has kind of put Andreas back into the clutches of Adam here, and Adam obviously sitting third place in the championship right now. He slowly been rising up the top 10 and finally now sitting in third place. And David Soranzo, take a look at my timing screen, going to finish this one in last position. So this is a good opportunity to get some points on the board and jump up into second place, Sumo, as we are going to tick over into the halfway point of the season.
Yeah, it's just getting so tricky there for Soranzo. This particular result can have major implications later on in the series, because when you have a championship this long and this diverse, you really want to make sure that you're scoring the maximum points all the time. And over here for Soranzo, things are getting fairly tricky.
Yeah, now Adam Crane looking to get back up into the podium place, and this is where we see who's got a stronger car on which line, because Adam Crane uses the inside, and as they go around 3 and 4, I do believe he had the place for a second, but Andreas not going to give it up easy here.
Yeah, they're probably getting their elbows out over here. 53 laps in, and time has really flown by, but things can be ever so faster over here once we have green flag runs. Look at them going side by side. This is the action that we've all tuned in to watch, and trust me, Marco Brazil right there, he's enjoying every moment of it, but he wants to get a piece of this action himself as well.
Yeah, and that traffic in front as well, it never stops. It's unrelenting at this very, very short track. 16-second lap times on average for these drivers right now, and there you can see Adam Crane using that traffic to get past. I think Andreas just conceding that at this point. He's struggling a little bit more with the car. The gap out front, though, will quickly check in there because Tim Doyle is doing a fairly effective job of just cutting away just lap by lap. You can see the last 2 laps, though, a little bit stuck in traffic here. But Sumo, the gap now just under a second.
Yeah, things are closing up over here. Tim Doyle making major strides rather quickly, but Andrew Wood, he's still checking out over there, and that 1 second gap is still quite a significant one at a racetrack like Richmond. Wood has just established his control and has established his dominance from the early half, and I would like to see how the other guys, especially Marco Brazil, responds to this one, because Brazil, he is, as I previously mentioned, somewhat of a speedway expert, and although Richmond is unlike any other super speedway, it's only a quarter mile, things are going to be a bit different. There's certainly going to be lots of lumps and bumps along the way, but how he responds to a tricky challenge like this one could certainly define the kind of driver that he actually is.
Indeed, and there we go. He's chasing down Andreas Eich in front of him, but there you can see as well, just in the rear of the shot, if you maybe take a bit of a close look, because John Downing, Sadie Sim Autosport driver, is not running his traditional paint, so you will have to pick it out by the number almost, but he's slowly closing in here, and Hugo Olsen also not too far behind, so your top 7 drivers separated by 7 seconds right now. 16 cars still on the lead lap, and that number always continuing to go down, Sumo, because Andrew Wood is continuing to keep up the pace right now.
Yeah, you could say that they're doing social distancing in their own way, but that's not what we really want to see over here in this particular race. Of course, they are going to be closing down once the cautions come in later on and when the pitch strategy comes into picture, but for now, it's nice and easy, nice and clean, and the traffic, Arjuna, I want to speak about that later on, because over here, it is such a short track, and making moves, as we have discussed previously, is going to be so tricky. Now, if you take a look at the track traffic over here, all the cars are so bunched up, so getting actually something done and getting past another driver is going to be so tricky.
Yeah, and Andreas Eich has really gotten stuck here. I'm not sure exactly which car that is, but he finally finds a way through, and this is those opportunities where I think some drivers get on the radio, just put over a public cry for help, because you know what's happened behind here, Sumo. If we take a look, John Downing, he's just jumped Marco Brazil, and I'm thinking here Hugo Olsen trying to also get into the action. We've seen Marco struggling just a little bit more with his car. Maybe he's running just a little bit less downforce, and when you get stuck in traffic like that and all that dirty air just accumulates, it becomes even harder to really just find any type of pace.
Absolutely, and for someone like Hugo Olsen who wants to chuck in major championship points in comparison to David Soranzo, this is the perfect opportunity. And now what happens when you don't really have enough downforce is that you lose a lot of time in those particular corners, as we see right here. Look at Hugo Olsen just closing in a little bit, and well, Brazil is managing it for now, but in the long run, not having enough downforce, it may give you a bit of top speed down this backstretch, the rather short backstretch that we have over here. But in the corners, which make up the majority of the circuit, you're going to be properly struggling, as Brazil was in the early half of this race.
Another lapped car. That's the lapped car that Andreas Eich was struggling with. Gets out of the way, lets them 2 drivers in front, John Downing and Marco Brazil by, and now Hugo Olsen also going to work his way through. We'll jump back to the front, though, because your leader, there you can see 4 cars in front of him right now. There's only 13 cars still on the lead lap, and very shortly, that's going to be down to 11. That pace very strong out front, but the gap, there you can see it is just been chipping away, because it's now under half a second, Sumo, and, a second might not be so bad a gap here at Richmond, but when you have half a second and that much traffic in front of you, you start to get a little bit more worried.
Absolutely, you do indeed. And I have a feeling that Andrew Wood, he was able to build up such a gap because the other guys just got caught up in the traffic, and Wood was able to avoid. But what happens once again, it's a short track and that bites you up once again. So Doyle is making the best use of that. He's closing in. Of course, he's caught up himself in a bit of traffic, but once he gets past, Wood can be on his charge. I mean, it's going to be so tricky because these guys, the traffic is perpetual over here. You just have to counter it all the time. But because their pace is so similar, they're going to be pretty much similar. So how you actually manage your traffic could actually be the defining thing, the defining factor to win this race.
And it's really closed up now. That gap was just under 0.2 of a second. This lap car just going to get in the way, and Tim Doyle really going to force it down the inside here. Just trying to clear that one more car. It was about to get very close, but as we tick over lap 72 of this one, Sumo, we're getting towards pit stop window because obviously we've had 2 cautions so far, but an 80 lap fuel window within, you know, maybe the next 10 to 20 laps, I would expect some of these cars to be coming down and, you know, potentially...
Oh, there's a spin back there. There's one driver who's lost his rear end, if I'm not mistaken, around the turn 1, turn 4 section. Who is that? That's Laura Gerhardt on the grass. So things haven't really been working out well for Laura.
Yeah, let's see if we can get a replay here because fortunately, no caution has come out. We'll jump back a little bit too soon. Here we go. We'll jump back here and see if we can grab the replay. It's coming out of turn 4. Actually, the problem here, Subal, is the laps are so short that you try to jump back to a point in time and you struggle. But here we go. Finally coming around turn 4. Oh, and like you say, in 4th gear, so trying to find a little bit more drive off the corner and just losing the rear end.
You know, that can really happen because at times when you haven't really got your tires in the right temperature, if you try and put down those 700 horsepower that this engine produces down too quickly, that sort of thing can turn your car around rather quickly, and that's what happened potentially for Laura Gerhardt.
Yeah, sorry, Sumo, because while that happened, we were taking a look at the replay. Pass for the race lead. Tim Doyle, he's now out front, and we'll try and grab a replay very quickly of that because I see exactly what happened. I have to assume, Sumo, traffic may be playing a little bit of a factor here. And there you can see down in towards turn number 1. I think actually it might be a little bit of just Andrew giving up position there, Sumo, because he saw the lap traffic in front and realized he was pinned up on the outside.
Yeah, so that is exactly what could have happened. He realized that rather smartly. And this is the perfect sign of Andrew playing the long game. He knows for a fact that the race isn't going to end here. So maybe he can just use the traffic to his advantage and maybe chip in later on.
And Tim Doyle has come down pit lane, so we talked about the pit window being open. A driver already deciding it was worth it. So there you can see he's just coming out of his box right now. So we'll try and grab a look at the pit lane time, and spending about 9.6 seconds in the box. Is very slow to get back up to speed. And a spin in front of him. Oh, that was close. Oh, and the yellow flags come out. Oh, no. Tim Doyle's been trapped 2 laps down.
Oh, boy. It just happened at the wrong moment. Now, we spoke about this previously. You don't really want to be going into the green flag. You don't really want to be going in for green flag pit stops. And Doyle, he thought that maybe the action is just settling down at this stage, so he can actually go in for that. But things have just backfired horribly wrong for him. And now all the other cars will be diving down. But Tim Doyle, the amount of time that he could have lost on the green flag run, that's going to be a bit too hard to recover over here.
Yeah, and it was Niall McBride. So we'll take a look here. Coming out of pit lane. Oh, just getting a little bit too greedy on the power. And very good avoidance there from Tim Doyle, actually, to not hit Niall as he spun in front of him.
Yeah, it's... Wow, I mean, his reaction times may have to be superb. Now look at the car ahead. He just gets on the throttle a bit too anxiously, a bit too eagerly, I must say. The cold tires, of course, coming into picture, and Tim Doyle, he'll be happy on one side that he avoided that accident, but coming back from P16, when everyone will be going into the pit stops, is going to be a bit tricky, as we see Adam Crane, if I'm not wrong, in the pit lane, as the pit crew have a nice chat.
Yeah, and that's going to promote Adam Crane, I do believe. Oh, sorry, no. It's going to promote Andrew Wood up into first and Adam Crane up into second now. So that is very unfortunate. And riding on board with that shot of Tim Doyle, he was very fortunate that he crossed that blue line. You can see the blue clone just in the background of the shot there. That's the pit exit marker line. And he was able to swerve and avoid there because otherwise he would have had an additional penalty to serve. So Tim Doyle is going to be the first car a lap down and hoping for something in this race to really change his luck, Sumo, because he's going to be stuck all the way behind a lot of slower cars in front of him, and that's going to put him at risk of going additional laps down fairly quickly.
And you don't really want that to happen, do you? When you're actually having the pace to fight for race wins, that sort of thing can just worsen your day in a matter of seconds. And yeah, recovering from that is going to be a bit tricky. It's going to be somewhat of a Herculean task, but if you can get it done, it'll show a really good sign of character in the driver. Now we ride on board with Neil McBride. Once again, cold tires, Arjuna, fresh from a pit stop. And the cold tires with 700 horsepower right behind you that sort of thing can just spin the car around so quickly. Thankfully, it didn't hit any barrier, so the body of the car is still intact, but that'll just be having such a big impact, not only on the tires, but also on his pride at times.
Yeah, absolutely. And just showing a replay for some of the people in chat who didn't get to watch that first replay around, so that's what brought out the caution flag. And there you can see some cars in between your leader and the pace car. They'll get cycled around at this point, I do believe, so we're just awaiting that moment. But Sumo, that's so unfortunate because Tim Doyle worked his way up through the field, and you know, I was really looking forward to seeing what he was going to be able to do in clean air.
Yeah, it's a race that's probably been hampered by quite a fair bit. Now, this just reminds me of another race I commentated on a couple of months ago. So it was one of the old sports car endurance races, and another driver just got caught up in a pit lane incident. Again, the race was hampered by a small mistake here and there, but eventually, the way he recovered from that, I'm not really sure about the name of the driver, I've forgotten that. But the way he kind of clocked in some superbly quick laps and was able to come back, he just showed that he was a driver of immense character, immense determination, and eventually got in quite a good result for his team. So if something like that can be done here today, although it may not be a win for him, it still can be a good points finish, and in the end, a good amount of satisfaction once he wraps up with the day.
Well, lights are out on the pace truck, so we are going to go racing again, and it will be a Team Talent driver who leads us to the green flag, but this time it's not Andreas Syke. This time it's that brown car of Andrew Wood, and here we go. Finishing lap 86 out of 225. Third caution of this one. Back to green flag racing. And it's gotten a little bit spread out because you've got these two guys out front battling away for the lead of the race, but then you go back, Andreas Syke, he's gotten caught up in a little bit of traffic, and there you can see what happens because you got more traffic in between him and the fourth place car of John Downing, who's about 2 seconds back, Sumo, so we're getting a little bit spread out right now.
Yeah, things are just easing out over here at Richmond, 89 laps into this race, and thankfully that's a good thing because now if we don't really have many cautions coming in, the racing action can just pick up later on as more and more drivers actually capitalize on their pit stop strategy and more drivers actually get into a flow and into a rhythm. Adam Crane was around 0.2 of a second close to Andrew Wood, but at this moment in time, he's just fallen back a little bit, so it just gives you such a good idea about the pace that Andrew Wood actually has on that car. He must have nailed down that setup, and I remember Buddy Rice, he was a very good racing driver around IndyCar, at the IndyCars around Richmond. He said that nailing down the setups and having a good relationship with the engineer is so critical to winning here at Richmond because your driving skill can only take you some point. Over here at Richmond, just when you have the correct setup for this car, it can actually give you such a big advantage in relation to the other cars, and that does certainly seem to be the case for Andrew Wood in the lead car.
Yeah, he's really proving to be a very strong contender here today. Still a long way to go though, so let's not write anyone off just yet. We do have a little bit of a battle brewing here because John Downing has got Hugo Olsen right behind him. Now this is the battle for 4th and 5th. A lapped car just getting onto the outside line there and getting cycled back again. And Sumo, this is one of the battles with championship implications because Adam Crane will be very happy to be running around in second. Potential to jump David Soranzo in those standings, but the championship leader qualified down in 10th. He's up into 5th now, and you know, in these long races, that's what you've really got to do, just make your way forward. And 3 cautions so far, and he's been well clear of any incidents related to them.
Exactly. Consistency is one thing that Hugo Olsen has been doing quite well. P5 is a good position to be in. Of course, as a driver, you want to get ahead as soon as possible, but he realizes that there's still quite a while left in this race, and he's got a half-decent car. I mean, it may not be as fast as something like Andrew Wood's one, but he's still done a decent job getting this one into P5. And for David Soranzo, well, sitting back at the back of the field, things are just getting so tricky for him. And there's a caution once again. I'll come back to that later on because the yellow flags are out once again. Now we just had another caution 10 laps ago, and here we are. What's going on here?
Not exactly sure what this one is for. We're going to try and take a look at a couple of replays here because there was a slow Matt Houston. He got a little bit
It's on
too
well here.
far back. We'll take a little bit of a further. Oh, he gets a little bit loose.
Oh, boy.
That was a big save. Oh, good save there. Very good car control, but that's clearly not the incident that brought out the yellow. We'll take a look. Oh, there it is. That's Richard Craig again. Oh, and he's doing a perfect, almost 720 there. He was trying to do a full 720, but failing on that last 180 degrees.
Rightfully so, and you could say he's kind of preparing for the post-race celebratory donuts, because if that's the case, that's quite well done for. But I feel a bit bad for Rashad Craig, because he's had a fairly tumultuous race, this one. He's been involved in 3 mistakes, if I'm not mistaken, right now. And that sort of thing never helps you as a driver. You just really want to be bouncing back from one mistake. And when you straight away go from one mistake to the other one, it can just dampen your confidence so much. So for Rashad, I think at this stage, it's all about trying to be consistent and not making any mistakes. The result, when you make 3 mistakes in a race, doesn't really matter anymore. It's all about just building up your confidence lap after lap and finishing in the end, because that's how you can develop this one and build on it in the future races. Yeah, so for Rashad Craig, not exactly the best race, as is that one car heading down to the pit lane, Arjuna.
I do believe there are a few cars further down the field going down onto the lane. That's Stefan Walter, one of the cars. He's already a lap down. None of the 7 cars who are on the lead lap have gone a lap down. Oh, sorry, have come into the pits. What we'll do, take a look at the left-hand side of your screen there. You can see the standings, because it's not just that pit stop put drivers like Tim Doyle a lap down. There are a lot of drivers there who are down there on pace sumo, because Andrew Wood and Tim Doyle at the start of the race and that long green flag run that we had were really putting on a really relentless pace until the caution came out.
And sometimes things like this that may not exactly be your fault can play against you. And for someone like Doyle, or maybe even Brazil, these sort of things can be very, very tricky to bounce back from. Again, it's going to be a Herculean effort for them. At Richmond, of course, it's not exactly the longest lap, so one lap may not really have the biggest implications in comparison to a speedway like Indianapolis or Texas, but it's still quite a tricky task to do. Getting unlapped by yourself is going to be fairly difficult for them. But again, they've got the pace, they've got the ability. If they have the confidence, they could very well be back into the contention for this race if things just play out in their hands.
Yeah, so we've only got 7 drivers on the lead laps, just something to consider. There's still 16 drivers, just 1 lap down, so potential that if we get a few more cautions with some of the lead lap cars too, well, some of these drivers who are still out there with 115 laps to go might still have the potential for a good top 5 finish here.
Indeed. Right, 101 laps into this race. I mean, time has flown over here. I expected this one to go rather slowly, but 101 laps, I didn't quite expect it to be done so quickly. It's been a fun race so far, quite a few good battles, quite a few good strategy calls as well, and a few crashes here and there. But Arjuna, I think we are going to be good to go green in a lap's time, if I'm not wrong. What do you expect from this team? Of course, we've seen cautions coming in at regular intervals. Do you think we're going to have a long green flag run this time out that can allow the drivers to actually get into a flow and manage their strategy? Or are we seeing more crashes coming in?
I certainly hope we're going to stay green. We still have 21 cars in the race, so Jason Wallet, he's come back onto the track in hopes of salvaging some kind of result here, but here we go racing once again. Andrew Wood, he's going to try and check out, because look at that jump he's got. Cars behind just slowly going to have to work their way through traffic as well. It is Hugo Olsen. He's going to try and make the move down the inside. He's already clear, but John Downing trying to fight back on the outside. Into turn 3, gives up the position. Hugo Olsen up 6 places, 4th in this field right now, Sumo.
He's climbing up this rocky mountain rather well, and with 100 more laps to go, somewhere there or thereabout, there's still ample of time for Hugo Olsen to go in and challenge for the lead. It's been a good race for him so far, but there are other cars on the charge as well who do have the sort of race-winning pace. At the top, it is Andrew Wood doing a good job, and Cesare Manzato seems to be blinking on the timing screen. I'm not sure what's happened to him. But yeah, P6 for him, not a bad place to be in.
No, not at all. And, you know, one of the last cars on the lead lap, but he's going to have a little bit of work to do. He's already 6 seconds behind the leader. We'll ride back with Tim Doyle for a second, because I believe that's John Downing behind him, but he's super quick, and at this point, he's already worked his way back up into 10th place now. Only 2 more cars on the same lap in front of him, so he's very quickly going to be knocking on the door, wanting to start to think about the lap back, because Sumo, I do believe we've had so far quite a few self-spins. We had that big incident at the start, but you know, if we stay green here, I think Tim's going to be just thinking of the strategy that's going to get him back onto the lead lap.
Exactly. Tim Doyle has been knocking off a few pegs right now from this green flag run. He's already up into P10 and he's on the tail of, well, quite a few drivers up ahead. That's lap traffic, if I'm not wrong, for him. So for Tim Doyle, yeah, it's going to be a tricky one to manage for sure, but he has the pace, he has the race-winning car that can actually get him to the top. So P1 may or may not be a possibility, but certainly he can get somewhere around P5 or P6, as once again, the inevitable has happened, and we have another caution.
Yeah, well, apparently...
Seems to be a self-spin.
Yeah, apparently cautions breed cautions. I think someone said that once upon a time, so it may be another self-spin. Is Stefan Waldar involved? There's Marco Brazil down on the inside. We'll continue watching this replay, and oh yeah, that's a peculiar one. And oh, there's a car that squeezes just between the wall, and oh, that's a very close one there, Subal.
Oh yeah, things got really hairy over there for Stefan back there. What actually could have happened is that there's a particular tarmac change over there when you actually go off from the banking to the straight. And look at that. The car just loses all sorts of grip mid-corner when you actually turn in from that. If you're a bit too eager on the throttle, things can get really bad for you really very quickly. And for Stefan, that is exactly what happened. An expert example of how you can get things wrong on a super speedway. Look at this onboard from Dan. Oh, how he has to avoid that. He goes really hard to the wall. A very risky strategy, but thankfully for him, it paid off in the end.
It paid off indeed, and we'll jump back to live pictures because a few cars have come down the pit lane. The most noticeable one, Andreas Eick, so pole position winner. He's currently riding in thirds. He's going to give up a podium position and come down, but obviously he'll stay on the lead lap at this point. And Sumal, so he's actually going to come out, I do believe, in 6th place, so he won't even be the last car on the lead lap. And no, that's because Robin Glennox has decided also to come down into the pit, so a few drivers deciding now is the right time.
Yeah, it can really happen. Drivers, as I previously mentioned, they would prefer going into stops into the caution flags. They just want to make sure that they lose as little time as possible. And if you actually make a green flag run, what can really happen is, with the other drivers lapping at full speed, you're going to be losing out a whole lot of time in the pit lane. That is exactly what happened with quite a few potentially race-winning drivers over here in this one. So drivers understanding for a fact that a lot of other drivers, a lot of their competitors are going to be spinning out or causing some sort of incidents here and there. And that particular confidence can allow them to bank on the yellow flags so that they can actually go in there and get the pit stops done while losing as little time as possible. So that seems to be the smartest strategy, Arjuna.
Yeah, well, let's see how it plays out because, I mean, if I go ahead and I pull up the track map, you can't really see it on the graphics that we have, but if we had a way of showing you all the lapped cars in front of Andreas right now, he's going to have a lot of cars in between him and the race leader, and, you know, that's a lot of cars to just make your way through, and caution or no caution, depending on how quickly it comes out, Sumal, yeah, that's a very tough position to be in here. Obviously, we talk about the importance of clean air, and, you know, in that last incident that we just saw, it can be very difficult trying to find the right lane to avoid the crash in front of you.
Exactly. And what happens here at a speedway like Richmond, because it's so short, whenever you get even the slightest of gap of clean air, it's just as if you've been sitting on top of a mountain and all of a sudden you come down and you see the breeze and your lungs start to grow bigger. That's what's happening with these drivers. There is barely any room at the speedway. And once you actually encounter clean air, just take a big sigh and you relax and you try to make the best of it. So the drivers, yeah, they worked much more hard over here. It's far trickier to manage the traffic in comparison to tracks like Texas. So yeah, clean air, it's the biggest luxury that very few can have at one point over here at Richmond.
Yeah, and I'm just trying to figure out on my timing screen exactly how far behind Andreas is going to restart because according to my timing screen, he's 21 seconds behind, and I'm not sure if that means, Sumil, he's literally the last car in the pack.
Oh boy. And that's a rather precarious position to be in at a speedway like Richmond. You're barely getting any clean air, and especially the other thing is you barely have any track position as well. So yeah, those sort of things just play away from you as the green flag drops, and we go for yet another, hopefully, yet another long green flag run here.
Yeah, and I can confirm Andreas Ike, there's only one car behind him, so he's got a tough task ahead of him now, deciding to come down the pit lane, but your race leader going to make their way around, cross off one more lap now. Just a reminder, there's only 3 cars that have retired from this one, so still 21 cars on the track right now. But it is Team Talent's Andrew Wood who leads, and then you jump back, you can see there is some close battles between some of the drivers who aren't even on the same lap right now.
Yeah, that sort of thing can end horribly wrong. I remember I was doing an Indy 500 race once, and we had 3 incidents of the lap cars actually taking the leaders out. You don't really want that to happen over here, especially when the margins for error are lower than they ever could possibly be. So yeah, lapped cars, well, they have the right to defend their position, but not to an extent where they actually take the other cars out.
Yeah, and that was Tim Doyle. He's now up into 9th. He's past Jesper Orman, so Tim's about to be the first car a lap down now, so slowly working his way back up into some good spots. But something just to consider, Sumil, now that Andreas Ike has come down the pit lane, I do believe that if we were to get another caution and the rest of the drivers on the lead lap came down pit lane, Tim Doyle would still be a lap down.
Oh boy, that's the worst possible thing that you could possibly hear if you're Tim Doyle. You're expecting something like a caution to come in and save you, but for Doyle, who already went a lap down because of that, may still be in that very position. So yeah, frustrating times for him. And just look at the gap up ahead, Arjuna. I wonder what's the secret to success for Andrew Wood, because whenever he gets the chance, whenever he gets the clean air, as he is getting right now, he just pulls out a gap that nobody else could have possibly imagined. Of course, there's a flip side to this as well, that because he's lapping far faster than anyone else, he'll be approaching the lap traffic far sooner, but he's making absolutely mixed noise over here. He's just being so resourceful of all the clean air in the picture.
Yeah, he's really just dominating this race right now, but we jump back to Tim Doyle because that pass that was promised is about to take place. Luis Nunez just in that very bright pink car in front, just trying to hold off Tim as long as he can, but I think moral of the story is actually, I think Luis just kind of getting a little bit out of the way there. If you're Tim Doyle now, Sumo, you're the first car a lap down. You've still got about 100 laps to go. Exactly. Oh, as Luis actually tries to defend the move here, goes back to the inside. Oh, they're side by side around 3 and 4. Oh, but there we go. Tim Doyle is able to clear, but there you can see the gap in front is actually about 7 seconds. So maybe, Sumo, you can actually look a little bit more forward now because Andreas is in the danger zone of being lapped as well.
That is just going to change the complexion of the race altogether. So many elements involved as we see yet another car going onto the grass. We've seen this happen so many times, Arjuna. A lot of people are losing it on the exit of turn 4 and just becoming the world's fastest lawnmower. And because you often end up losing your mid-corner grip, something like that, those sort of things can happen so quickly. And here at Richmond, the pit wall is so close as well. So if you just get it a little bit too wrong, you could be smashing the pit wall and, well, making an entire mess of this race, as Cesare Manzato is up to P5, but Rob Inglis, I hope I've not butchered that name, he's up in P6, and that gap is closing ever so much, so we could be having a good fun battle on our hands.
Yeah, we could indeed. The traffic's really just bunching everyone up in together here. And that was Laura Gerhard, I do believe, that went around. Fortunately, no caution. We ride on board here with the 13 of Robin Glennox. One of the great things I love about this track, Sumal, is that it's not just keep the throttle pinned, you know, maybe a little bit of a lift here and there, but these drivers using all of the gear, sometimes even having to brake the car, despite the fact that the speeds here are still super fast. As Cesar just getting a little bit too checked up here, and Robin Glennox is going to try and roll the outside.
Wow, that's a properly daring move over there. You generally don't get to move. Oh my goodness! As I spoke about making a daring move over there, Rob just got it horribly wrong, and all the guts, all the machoism has gone into the bin over here. Wow, that didn't end well.
Oh, that's a shame indeed, and unfortunately, the blame can be solely placed, I think, with Robin Glennox, unfortunately. Let's see if we can get the replay first time up here. Here we go. So you can just see he's getting a little bit too pinched there, trying to just find a lane to make it 3 wide. And, you know, Richmond just really isn't a track where 3 wide is a thing.
It's the ultimate luxury. We take a look at this onboard once again, where things get horribly wrong. Rob comes up to the outside and just gets checked up, has barely any room to go, and naturally that's just gonna end in an utter disaster. So for Rob, yeah, he was getting a bit too eager, and now he's just been put back into his place with some major front wing damage. And at a circuit like Richmond, well, that can just hamper your race so much. It is so oriented towards downforce that that front wing damage can just make you lose so much time, and Rob is just going to make another trip to the pit lane.
Yeah, and he's going to be joined by most of the rest of your field, so fortunately, I do not believe that he's going to lose too much time. We'll have to spend about 5 additional seconds getting that front wing repaired, but Andrew Wood already out of his box, the lineal race leader. I do believe, though, Tim Doyle, 54 laps on this stint so far, but officially has regained the lead lap of this race, Sumil. So I think if you're that number 3 machine who's had to fight back from that difficult first pit stop in this race, he's now in the position where he needs another caution to come out so he can come back down and get a little bit more fuel and tires.
Yeah, exactly. It's a precarious situation. On one side, you're going to be happy to be on the same lap as the leaders, where you can actually go in and show the kind of pace that you and your car have. But at the same time, he's not in sync with the pit strategy. So, again, the only way it could actually work out for him right now is if we have another caution coming in, as you rightly mentioned. But I have a feeling, you know, the way the racing action has been going in so far, I don't think a caution is too far off. So for Doyle, things could just fall back into his hands. And once he's on the lead lap and on the same page as all the other cars, this could be the time where it actually shows the world the kind of pace and the kind of quality of the setup that he's actually put into his car. So yeah, his effort and all his hard work could finally come into picture if, and that's a big if we have yet another caution coming through.
Well, we've got about 90 laps to go. What we can quickly do then, just take a look at how everyone has moved around in this race, and there you can see some big winners. You got the likes of Luis Nunez, who's a lap down, but up 16 places, so he started all the way at the tail of the field, and been very attrition-based race for the driver from Canada. And then you've got, obviously, Hugo Olsen, a championship contender. He's up into P3. Adam Crane also contending for that championship, has stayed exactly where he is. But Sumal, it's been a race where some drivers have had it very easy, and some drivers have struggled just that little bit more.
A tale of contrast, that's what I'd like to call it. It's such a diverse series, this IndyCar one. You have to just go to so many different types of racetracks, and certain times it works for you, and certain times it just works against you. Now, so many of these drivers may be fantastic drivers on road courses and long ovals, but over here, they may be struggling. And it can happen at times that the luck can play into you. I mean, maybe you can have a car spinning right in front of you and somehow you avoid it and the other cars don't. Things like that can actually happen. And we have seen it happen so many times in this particular race as well. Oh my goodness, all the other cars are just going past. I just got scared over there looking at the shot of the wheel cam and the car's getting a bit too close. But yeah, again, luck can be a major factor. And just being there at the right place and the right time, which may not always be down to your ability, it can determine where you finish in the end. And as it has happened for Doyle in this one, just spinning in at the wrong time, it can wreck your race so badly that you may not even be able to recover from that.
Yeah, well, I love that shot of all the cars just getting their way back past the pace car to get their lap, get themselves back on the lead lap in the case of Tim Doyle. But here we go back to the green flag racing. The field's been shaken up just a little bit more. We've now got 13 cars back on the lead lap, and look at this. Now that the traffic's out of the way, Adam Crane trying to attack, and Sumo, we've not seen this for a while. Andrew Wood has really had it all his own way.
Here we go again. Wood is under some pressure at last. They're finally competitors for him. And Hugo Olsen, the championship leader, is here to get his hands dirty as well. He wants to get a share of this pie. And in P3 is in the perfect position for this one. Not too close, but not too far either. And guess what, Arjuna? The caution is back once again. The inevitable has just happened. I'm kind of losing track of how many cautions we've actually had.
Yeah, we'll take a look at the replay. It's Henry Riscorn here. Hopefully it's a single car incident. There he is on the outside, going a little bit slowly already, and oh, okay. Trying to do a little bit of a wall walk there, if anything, Sumo. Maybe some hardware failure.
Yeah, that was a rather unusual event. Perhaps it could be a case of signing an autograph for a fan sitting behind the wall, but that's unlikely to happen in sim racing. But it just goes a bit too high, and the high side just bites back. So for Henry, I think you could be right. It may be a hardware failure, or purely just a lack of concentration, or maybe just a will to explore what the signs on the wall are saying. I don't know. That was a rather strange one.
Yeah, but we talked about drivers needing pit stops, and guess what? Tim Doyle, he's going to be swinging around his party hat right now because back onto the lead lap, and guess what? He's about to get a full tank of fuel and fresh set of rubber, and I think it's fair to say, Sumo, I was trying to just figure out how strongly we can praise Tim because he's had the strongest car, I think, of anyone here today. And I think finally back on the lead lap, let's see what he can do to work his way back up towards the pointy end of the field.
Now this is going to be so fun. Keep one eye peeled in on the timing screen and just take a look at what Tim Doyle is going to do now, because this one is going to take a very, very special effort from him. At last, after all the hardships he's faced in this race, he's finally on the lead lap with a car capable of winning this one. And it's all down to his ability, how he can actually keep his head down, how he can actually maintain a good temperament and go out there and show everyone watching that he is a guy who can go in and fight off even the toughest of circumstances. It's not going to be easy for him, but again, even the first half of the race wasn't for him as well. So now it could take a special effort, and in the end, I'm pretty sure this is going to be one very exciting finish to watch out for. Stay tuned, guys. You don't want to miss this one.
Yeah, and some of the people in our YouTube chat are just speculating if drivers like Tim Doyle, Luis Nunez, Jesper Orman, Marco Brazil may be capable of going to the end, because it's about 80 laps to the finish here, and fuel window about 80 laps as well. The drivers in front came down about 10 laps ago, so they're going to be dependent on just a few more cautions. But that definitely mixes things up, and like Sumo says, Tim Doyle has fought hard to put himself back into this position. He's going to have to keep fighting to work his way back up front, and I think, I'm trying to just count, Sumo, I think that would be our 6th caution in about 150 laps so far. Am I miscounting?
I guess so. I haven't been keeping track, because I knew for a fact that before this race began, there would be quite a few of them, so counting them wouldn't exactly make sense. But 6, yeah, not bad. 6 is not a bad number, to be honest with you. But I certainly see it going on to another couple of cautions here and there as well. Of course, if they actually manage their fuel well, and if there's a green flag run, they could make it to the end without heading towards the pit lane. But realistically, considering all that's been happening, and considering how these guys can actually get so frantic towards the end, I kind of expect the pit window to open up once again under the yellow flag. So yeah, towards the end, the guys are going to get their elbows out. They're going to get really frantic and really excited to battle for the win. And that's certainly going to be breeding up a couple of cautions, that's for sure.
Well, thanks to the power of Timing 71, and once again, live timing is available at timing71.org/s/racebot if you want to go directly to this event page. And I was just counting, Sumo, this is the 7th caution, and if you can believe it, we've spent more time under caution than green flag racing. 29 minutes of green flag racing to 30 minutes of cautions. That's going to change just now as we get back to the green flag, but here we go. Oh, they're really getting stacked up there, and now that the traffic's out of the way, I think hopefully we'll see a little bit more fighting. All these drivers on new tires, and there you go already. Andreas Ike looks to the inside of John Downing, the Sadie Sim Autosport car, not in its traditional blue here today, but Andreas trying to challenge here, and Tim Doyle already trying to close up now on Robin Glennox behind as well. So it's all happening now, Sumo, because we've got an incredible 13 cars back on the lead lap.
It all really is kicking off over here, and all the drivers are getting excited. They're just pulling the trigger over here and realizing that with not many laps to go, they have to get the track position in. And at Richmond, every single lap passes by so quickly, you barely even realize it. So how many laps have we got left? We've got barely 78 ones. So this race can just go past so quickly that the drivers understand that getting track position right now is more crucial than ever. The gaps have spread out though. And soon, once they get into the stride, once they get into the momentum, you will see these gaps closing down and the battles becoming ever so exciting.
Yeah, it's definitely getting a little bit stretched out here. You can see Tim Doyle, he's trying to just close up to Robin Glennox right now, and Tim, just keep an eye out for him. He's about 4 seconds off the lead right now, and still got about 5 cars obviously to pass before he can think about challenging, but Tim has been one of the more exciting stories to follow in this race so far, and I think back to the last season of Pro Mazda when I was broadcasting that with Dylan Coyle, and Tim made a guest appearance in the one and only race that was on the ovals that season, obviously at Richmond again, and Tim Doyle won that one in dramatic fashion. A very strong showing, so you always have some of these guys, Sumo. You talk about the diversity needed in the IndyCar Series. Tim Doyle, definitely an oval driver, and you know, these short tracks, definitely something he really enjoys because of all the challenges that you've talked about before.
Exactly, and Tim Doyle, it just reminds me of the Ed Carpenter model. Ed Carpenter, of course, who he owns the Ed Carpenter Racing team in IndyCar, he just comes in and appears in the ovals, and trust me, when he's driving that car in the ovals, he is mighty competitive. It's not like a team owner, a snobbish team owner coming in and driving on the ovals, not being very competitive and going back home with a happy face. When he comes onto the track to drive those cars on the speedways, he's properly fast, and I think I see a similar shade over here with him as well. Tim coming in for the short ovals and making his impact felt properly over here. He's carving on the positions quickly, and Tim Doyle is on the charge, already back up to P6, and the gap between him and the leader Andrew Wood is down to 8 seconds. If something changes over here, Tim Doyle could probably be on the hunt for P1.
Yeah, that gap's just built up a little bit. He took a little bit of time to pass Robin Glennox there for 6th place, but now he's got a little bit more clean air in front, and he's going to look, just chip away. Niall McBride making his way down onto the pit lane, but out front, Andrew Wood continues to just pull away, just lap by lap. The gap to Adam Crane, who is 2nd place in the championship. There you can see how that gap has been forming. The last 2 laps, just, you know, hundredths of it at a time. That's all you need here. And that gap back from Adam Crane to Hugo Olsen, you can see between 2 championship contenders here. Hugo Olsen leading the championship. So this is one battle where just keep an eye on, because 2 drivers who have a lot to lose here. Sumo, we are getting towards the latter stage of the race. It's actually flown by fairly quickly despite the number of cautions, because we're already getting to that point where maybe no more pit stops, maybe everything's happening on track now, and some of these drivers are just going to be that little bit more cautious when it comes to ensuring they get a good haul of points out of this one.
Exactly. It may sound ironic, but the cautious approach may actually avoid the cautions in the end, and that is exactly what we want to see. Good green flag running. I was doing a couple of test runs over here at this very circuit in these very Indy cars on my simulator, and I didn't really realize how quickly time passed. I thought I was doing laps at a fairly slow rate, and when I came up eventually, turned up, I had done what, 70-80 laps before I'd even realized it. And that sort of thing can happen at Richmond. It is such a fast and such a small racetrack, and when you get into a rhythm, when you actually get into a mood, you can get into somewhat of a tunnel vision. And that is a very dangerous phase though, because when you're in a tunnel vision, you can extract performances that you didn't know you had within you, as Tim Doyle is trying right now. But your slightest of break of your concentration, even the slightest of errors, and you could be into the walls rather quickly. So the tunnel vision, it can help you, but it can impair you at times as well. So for Tim Doyle, he seems to be in a similar state, in what people like to call the zone. And if he can make the best use of this one, he certainly can be on the podium. No, we don't really have the podiums back in America, do we?
Yeah, I think more just the victory lane celebration. So Tim Doyle's going to be wanting to drive that car in, and now he's just trying to get to work on that 6th car. You saw the lap car just getting in the way a little bit. You talk about tunnel vision, Sumo. It's important as well not to get tunnel visions, because you get so close to each other racing wheel to wheel at speeds in excess of 270 kilometers an hour, and these guys are really fighting it out hard now.
Yeah, that sort of thing can really pay off and can actually impact you later on as well. Of course, it can extract a good deal of performance from you, but when you're so close to each other, when you have so many cars right in your periphery, that sort of thing can cause that sort of thing. I'm sorry, can put you into incidents that you don't really want to be. So for Doyle at this stage, he's avoiding them well, and he's on the momentum once again. We spoke about it, how crucial it is to actually get into momentum and get your positions in. And for Tim Doyle, he's doing exactly that. He's in a good flow. And I'm pretty sure that all the eyes are going to be peeled right at him, because we've seen time and again, he has the pace, he has the confidence. It's all about going in there and getting it done concretely. For now, seems to be all good with not a lot of laps, only 58 laps left to go.
Yeah, and he's dropped back a little bit, and I was just wondering here, John Downing rolling that high side very effectively, able to hold on to the position, and now Tim just maybe backing off a little bit because we go back into that fuel strategy calculation, and obviously all the cars in front of Tim pitted 8 laps earlier, and Tim himself only came down lap 85, so he's right on the bubble of being able to make it on fuel, and maybe at this point just thinking, I'll save a little bit of fuel and see what the cars in front of me do, Sumo, because everyone does come down the lane. At the very least, what he can try and do is jump some of those cars by just having that, little bit shorter fill time in the box itself.
He's trying to roll the dice, trying to see what happens. Now, another thing, it's actually basic maths that he has to take care of. If he goes onto the fuel conserving strategy, he needs to make sure the time he gains on the pit stop will actually be lower than the time he loses on the track. So again, simple basic maths, and he needs to consider that right while driving. About, is he losing too much time by conserving? That sort of thing, if he tries it for a couple of laps here and there, maybe he can just come up to a concrete decision and realizing what he actually can do. And to save fuel over here, Arjuna, your throttle movements are critical. Of course, in a long speedway like Indianapolis or Daytona or something like that, of course, we don't really go to Daytona in Indy cars. You can sit behind in the draft and drive on a half throttle or a 3/4 throttle or something like that and conserve a lot of fuel while keeping up with the other drivers as well. That's not a luxury that you have here at Richmond. Because the draft effect is so minimalized, that sort of thing won't exactly work. So how you actually lift off the throttle on certain corners and how you get back on it in the correct way is going to be critical to ensuring that you save fuel in the correct manner. And that is one driving skill, one driving ability that is a bit hard to master in the end.
And we've seen it earlier in the race. You talked about momentum, Sumal, and the caution's just come out, but I was about to say that momentum is very important. It's Niall McBride who's around again. We'll see what happened, but unfortunately, Team Talent's Niall McBride making an appearance in this series for the first time in a while, and he was already 9 laps down, and that's a unfortunate incident just to end off your day. Just, the cherry on top of everything that you've already been through.
Exactly. It's rather a bit of cherry for him at this stage. Once again, is it going to be that change? No, understeer. Arjuna, that's a major factor. Now, what happens here is when you're applying too much load on your wheels, when you're trying to carry too much speed into that corner, your car just understeers horribly wrong. I mean, you're trying to brake, you're trying to turn and go past at the same time, and your tires just can't take it. In the end, what happens is your tires scream out in agony, and they just say, I'm giving up, I'm taking it to the wall. That is exactly what happened over there. A bit of cherry to top off this cake, this one. And yeah, not really an accident that you want to be involved in. Look at the iRacing Marshal, Arjuna. A bit of a lighter moment, but the Marshal is just waving the flag with some intensity. I wish I took all my challenges in life with that sort of intensity. And that is just insane to see.
Yeah, well, we also saw that Adam Crane just faking out a little bit, trying to see if Andrew Wood was going to follow onto pit lane. And there are quite a few drivers who have. We'll go ahead and show you the shots of there, because there's Andreas Ike. He's led them down. You got Marco Brazil, John Downing, Jesper Orman, Tim Doyle, Robin. The list goes on and on. It's basically, Sumo, everyone other than the top 3.
Oh, yeah. Now, that is a rather interesting fact, isn't it? The way this race has revolved eventually and how things can go back. Wow, interesting.
Yeah, and something important there happened in the pit stop, because Tim Doyle, he was having that great fight with John Downing. We were mentioning just maybe putting a little bit less fuel in, although I would have to assume that given the amount of tires that that would be the prevailing limiting factor in the pit stop rather. But Tim Doyle able to jump up one more place. He's up into 5th now, and so he's going to be looking in on the podium. And here we've got a very interesting thing to look at here because no fuel saving to consider for these drivers who have pitted, but we've got Andrew Wood, Adam Crane, and Hugo Olsen. They don't necessarily have to save fuel, Sumil, but they are going to be on a significant disadvantage in terms of the tire life to all of those drivers who have just come down and got 4 fresh set of tires.
Absolutely. Now, when you are in a short circuit like this one, because you're cornering virtually all the time, you're applying some crazy lateral loads on your tires, especially when you consider the fact that these cars also have the aero kit for this one, so they're adding extra downforce. So not only are the tires being pressurized laterally, they're also being pressurized horizontally, and that can just make them wear out rather quickly. So getting fresh rubber, getting the fresh tires in and putting them at the right temperature can have such a major advantage. So for the leading pack who haven't gone down into the pit lane, they may just be struggling with that later on. Because as you correctly mentioned, fuel may not be a major issue, but the tires could just give out towards the later end. And those guys with the fresh tires, they could have a significant advantage. That said though, Arjuna, when you come out of the pit lane and under the pace car, you just can't get your tires up to temperature correctly. And what really happens is, with cold tires and on the restart, it can really happen that when you try to get on the power too quickly, with the cold tires and with 700 horsepower behind you, the tires can just spin around so much and they just can't handle all the torque and all the power coming in. So it is very, very easy to spin your car around on the restart. So again, tire temperatures are certainly one thing to consider, and of course the tire wear and the tire life as well. In the end, I think this is going to be a superb race to watch at the front. I think the battle for the lead is just going to be an all-time classic.
Yeah, I'm very excited about this one to the end. 45 laps to go, so we're going to have 44 laps, hopefully, of green flag running. Once again, it is a Team Talent driver who's going to lead us to green, and Team Talent have been talented enough to lead every caution of this, or rather every restart of this race. Now Andreas Eick is back in 4th position, but let's see what happens here. The first car on fresh tires is Andreas Eick in 4th. He's got Tim Doyle behind him, but there you can see the top 3 really getting a really good jump here, and Andreas Eick, because of a lapped car, Sumil, getting a little bit checked up.
That's the major fly in the ointment for him. Now he'll have to get on the momentum and he'll actually have to close up quite a fair bit. That lapped car turning out to be a major problem for him, because at a circuit like Richmond, you can't close in that gap ever so quickly. So yeah, he just needs to lay the gauntlet down and close in as soon as possible, and he seems to be doing exactly that. We're in for a green flag run eventually, I hope, and Tim Doyle is on the charge yet again. This battle for the lead, Arjuna, is turning out to be fantastic.
Yeah, Hugo, there's a spin. Oh, that's an incident, and that's going to bring out the yellow flag. Tim Doyle getting a little bit too deep. Oh, and he spun Andreas Eick around there, Sumo. Oh, that was a very unfortunate one, but I was just about to say, Tim's got to calm down just a little bit and make sure that exact thing does not happen.
Yeah, he just got caught up in the wrong thing at the wrong time. Doyle, thankfully, he avoided that. But boy, that got rather intense over there. I love the fact that he said, Hugo, oh, as things went horribly wrong. Doyle coming in, just the gentlest of love kisses over there, and even that can make a major difference over here. For Eick, he has it all to do right now, and that accident has just compromised his race quite a fair bit. That, Arjuna, I think there are going to be a few heated words after the race, that's for sure.
Yeah, we'll take a look again there, and that's what happened. Oh, that's just the momentum that these fresh tires have, because Andreas had just as good of a run there into the entry of the corner, but had to check up a little bit in the middle, and that's what that enabled him to just power on the exit of the corner. And that's a very unfortunate one, because Andreas is now all the way down in 11th, and he's actually coming down the pit lane. And sometimes, Sumo, when you get a little bit of damage to that rear point of the car, you get an additional 15 seconds in the box, and I hope that hasn't happened to him.
If that's the case, that's his race gone for the worse. And apart from that damage as well, when you have something like that, oh wait, that was a rather quick pit stop. So if Eick, well, what's going on here? Oh yeah, Arjuna, I guess you have something to say.
Yeah, no, because it's not just Andreas Eick who's coming to the pit lane. Adam Crane, who was running up in 2nd place, he's come down the pit lane, put 7 seconds worth of fuel into the car. I think also gotten some tires changed as well. But okay, so we've got some changes here, because Adam Crane is actually going to be behind Andreas Eick, so that promotes Hugo Olsen up into second behind Andrew Wood. And now Tim Doyle is going to restart this one in third place.
Look at how the tables have turned so quickly. Only a few laps ago, we were discussing about Tim Doyle having to struggle to find his way up onto the lead lap, and right now he's up into P3 with the freshest possible tyres. So for him, it's all turning out to be quite a good race in the end, and he has quite a few laps now left to try and get something done and hopefully get into the victory lane eventually. For the other guys, I think it's a rather conservative strategy that to try and go into the pit lane and get in fuel and tyres. Maybe it's a sign of showing that this particular last run that we're going to have here is just going to be proper elbows out, proper fast one that could actually put a lot of stress on the tyres and the fuel with barely any conservation on the mind. So for this one, Arjuna, it's a clear sign that all these drivers are heading in for a good, fast, quick-paced, proper run for the win over here.
Indeed, and we'll see what happens here, because I think it's going to be very curious how quickly Tim Doyle and the pack behind him make their way past the two drivers out front right now, because I think new tires really going to be very powerful. And I think Adam Crane potentially, Sumo, thinking that he has a strong enough car to drive back through the field and still somehow, I guess, get away with a good enough position, better than he would have got if he didn't come down for new tires. So I can hear a little bit of fuel burning going on here. That's what you do in these Indy cars when you put that little bit of extra into the tank and you don't need it to make it to the finish, because obviously this isn't NASCAR. We don't have green, white checkers and all of that here, Sumo. If we have to finish under yellow flag, we'll finish under yellow flag.
Exactly. And the idea behind this is to get rid of all the extra fuel and make sure that the car is as light as possible. Because at this stage, it's only a track position that matters. In the end, the game just becomes shorter and shorter and shorter. And you start to keep the strategy aside and start to focus more on the action on track. As we will right now, because the pace car has pulled in and we are ready to go for some good, clean green flag action.
Going to be 36 laps to go, and once again a very good jump for your leader, but straight away the pressure's being applied. There is Tim Doyle already on the inside. And, Hugo Olsen just going to give the place up here. He's not even going to really challenge it. Oh no, as I say that, he tries to turn in, and I think trying to check up the cars behind, and now Hugo Olsen on the outside about to get freight train. They're going to go 3 wide, and Robin Glennix has to get out of the way there, because Marco Brazil with a very aggressive move to the inside, and 3 wide does not work here at Richmond.
You don't go 3 wide here at Richmond unless you're a proper lunatic. That was properly daring over there. Somehow they managed to work it through, but when it goes wrong, it just goes properly wrong, and the consequences are horrible for everyone involved. Thankfully, they've kept it safe, and now look at this one. This is the battle I have been waiting for such a long time. Andrew Wood and Tim Doyle, especially for the lead. Andrew Wood has just set in the fastest lap of this race. I think, he's setting in some good lap times. His best lap was a 15.617 back in the early half, but Tim Doyle closing in the gap at 6/10.
Yeah, and out front, Andrew Wood able to hold on with old tires and clean air, but Hugo Olsen, he started in second. He's all the way down in 8th now. He's got 2 seconds behind him, and he's going to be hoping that he's not going to lose too much more time, because all that's going to happen for the Swede is that he's going to just keep dropping like a rock. And we'll jump back out front, because there's Tim Doyle. He's right on the rear wing here of Andrew Wood, and finally trying to challenge back for the race lead. It took him about 110 laps, but there we go. It's Tim Doyle in that very distinctive purple car. Sumo, he's finally back into the lead, and I think now it's going to be just how quickly is he going to pull away from Andrew here.
This is just going to be a proper show of domination here if things go correctly. Doyle has just had the fastest car in relation to everyone else over here, and now he's just going to flex his muscles and show what he's actually made of. He's been through a lot of difficulties in this one. Now what he has to do is set in your lap times consistently, don't make any mistakes, and above all, avoid the traffic, because that could be the easiest way in 101 ways to wreck your race. And for Tim Doyle, it's all about keeping it clean, as we see another driver certainly not keeping it clean over here.
Yeah, Stefan Walder would grab a replay very quickly. It was in and amongst the pack, and Stefan's already been involved in an incident on his own today. And oh, there's another one. Turn 2 once again biting another car. Fortunately, no caution this time, Sumo, so we're going to keep racing, which is what we ultimately want to see. It's Tim Doyle, though, 1.1 second lead here. He's just been running away with this, and Andrew Wood, he's fallen back to third, and Hugo Olsen, he's back into 10th now. So, I mean, it was worth the gamble, Sumo, but 25 laps to go here, and all those cars on fresh tires, they more than worked their way past all of these guys in front of them.
Exactly. Doyle is just going hell for leather over here. I expected him to be fast, but not this much, as we see. What, I think this is Marco Brazil, if I'm not mistaken, in that lime yellow car. No, that's Andrew Wood and John Darnley, that is. So I got slightly confused over there. And Wood just checks up to the high side and loses out the position.
Yeah, you're right, Sumil. It was Andrew Wood and Marco Brazil. So Andrew Wood, he was leading this race. He's now back into 4th place. He's got 1.6 seconds back to Luis Gonzalez Nunez. And if you want to just kind of compare what the strategies have done here, that Adam Crane, he obviously came down, took some fresh rubber. He's in 6th place now, so he's about 1.9 seconds behind Andrew Wood. He would have started right behind Andrew if he had not come down the lane. And I think just an indication there of what the different strategies can do. And, you know, at this point, those tires must just be feeling like ultimate goop underneath both Andrew and Hugo, Sumo, because we could go back to Hugo now. He's got more cars just queuing up behind him.
And that decision not to pit certainly is backfiring at this stage. The tires, if you just take a look at their on-boards, it just may be screaming in agony because you're pushing them a bit too hard and you have pushed them for such a long time. Getting on the correct tires, getting on the fresh tires at this stage may have been the correct choice. And for Hugo Olsen, he's learning all of that the wrong way. Started in P2, he's down in P10. And well, normally you would expect him to go a bit more safer because he's leading this championship, so that he wants to maximize his points and stay on the very top. But this certainly isn't helping. You can take a gamble to make things work for you, but this one has backfired, and has backfired spectacularly for him.
And there you can see there are some small packs that have developed, even though Tim Doyle has kind of run away out front. But here is Andrew Wood. He's got Luis Gonzalez Nunez from Canada right behind him. And then right behind Luis is Adam Crane. And this is where I'm interested to see just how quickly Adam is able to work his way past. Obviously, the different strategies coming to play out here. And Adam trying to look to the inside of the 17 and running these road course downforce configuration in a lot of ways, Sumo. We're seeing that both the inside and the outside have been places to make moves happen. And, you know, we're coming down 15 laps to go. I think this battle for 4th is really going to be the one to follow.
Yes, indeed. Things get fairly acrimonious over here as we see another move trying to be made. Of course, one thing that you mentioned correctly, Arjuna, is that the inside and the outside can be made properly over here. You can't go 3 wide as they are going right now. I'm sure that's not going to end well. These guys are not any docile drivers, are they? Taking all the risks in the world and trying to go 3 wide to get their moves in. Oh boy.
And Adam Crane is going to make that all work to his advantage because he forced Andrew Wood to kind of check up the momentum there, stuck in the middle. And now Andrew's actually going to fall back into 6th, so a very, very bold move from Adam there. Puts him back up into 4th. He's got a long way to go, though. If he wants to try and catch up to the leading group, we'll jump back to that leading pack because Tim Doyle, as he just works his way through some more lap traffic here, you take a look at that gap to John Downing, and you can just see how it's been growing just ever so slightly. Tim being that more clinical in how he navigates through the traffic. And Sumo coming to 10 to go here, and you never want to put a commentator's curse, but Tim Doyle, he's had to fight through so much adversity here, coming back from 2 laps down and in such a strong position and such a strong car now. Looking good to get the win here.
Yeah, you know, that situation of being 2 laps down is a bit like being stuck in quicksand. You want to get out of there as soon as possible, but any rapid, unthoughtful movements can actually get you stuck in there for quite long. So for Tim Doyle, he's been very smart in his approach. He's trying to make things work for him very smart. He's been very measured in his approach, and that certainly has paid off in the end. And the one word that you correctly mentioned, clinical, that is exactly what Tim Doyle has been. He has not put even a single foot wrong, and that is the ultimate sign of trying to go in there and trying to win a race. And for Tim Doyle, it's all worked out perfectly in the end. A good story, so to say, because in the end, in the beginning, Things were just going away from him so quickly, but he managed to claw back through, grab the race by both the hands, and now he's just not letting go of it. The gap becoming ever bigger.
And we talked about Adam Crane just trying to catch up here for that battle for the podium. There is Marco Brazil in front of him, the 10th Factory Sim Racing driver, and oh, there, Marco getting very tight and getting very close to the wall, and word of the night, if you will, has been momentum, and once again, Adam Crane just building all of that up, and that lap car just kind of bottling up the Brazilian just a little bit, and down to the inside Sumo. This is going to be close here, because I think he's going to have a look. Nope, not this time around, and 6 laps to go, though. It's going to be a close one.
Oh, yes, indeed. These guys are finally showing the kind of fights that we actually wanted to watch from the very beginning. And now with no pressure about the strategy, things could get so much fun over here. It could be a proper good shootout as we now have barely any few laps left. Momentum coming into picture over here, and Brazil is under some proper pressure. Look at how dirty his car has become. It's sort of like a war paint after you come back with all the damage on your car, all the dust, all the bugs being perfectly represented here in iRacing. And now his rear view mirror will be full of that car of Adam Crane. Things are gonna get so much fun.
Yeah, we've got just a few more laps here. It's 3 laps to go for the race leader, so just over 45 seconds to go, and the story here is Adam Crane. Oh, he gets a little bit of wobble there coming out of turn 2. He's really pushing hard. He's trying to get that podium position. He came in for fresh tires on that last caution. He's got 2 more laps to go. There's a lapped car who's just going to move up and out of the way here. This is the main battle on track. You have Andreas Eich and Robin Glennox fighting for 7th on track as well. Here we go. Last lap of the race. I think, Adam getting a little bit too close to the wall. Getting a little bit too tight, and unfortunately, that's going to be it for that battle, but it is Tim Doyle out front. He leads by almost 2 seconds now. Comes around turn 4 for the 225th time. He takes the checkered flag and wins this one. And Sumo, what a fantastic win it was for him.
A proper show of strength and character here for Tim Doyle, coming back from such tricky circumstances in the end to take a commanding victory. What a drive this was. I think he'll be going at home, putting his feet on the table, chilling with a nice cool beer, and realizing that that was one of the very few performances that anyone can take out that can be so commanding in such a race. Doyle, well, it's full marks for him, and he takes the biggest prize here at Richmond.
And you can see some of the final cars just pulling into the pit lane, and 225 laps. They flew by in the blink of an eye. But right now, we'll go ahead and take a look at the results. Popping up on your screen right now, it was Tim Doyle who won. The gap out front in the end, 1.5 seconds, and John Downing, Sadie Sim Motorsport driver, is going to be coming home in 2nd. Marco Brazil does complete that podium with Adam Crane close behind. They got Luis Gonzalez Nunez and Andrew Wood, who had a very strong showing, and unfortunately, the strategy did not play out the way he would have wanted. They got Robin Glennox, Jesper Orman, Hugo Olsen does recover to 9th, and you got Andreas Eich, who's going to round out the top 10.
And then we move on to the bottom half. We've got Daniel Noventa in P11, Matt Houston in P12, Dan Inch finishing up in 13, with Eric Winter, one of our regular series drivers, coming up 2 laps down in P14. Rashad Craig, with a rather eventful race for him, comes home in P15, with Jason Ballard not really so prominent in this one, finishing in 16th. Laura Gerhardt with that spin coming home in 17th. Stefan Walter having a bit of a tricky one towards the end. He finishes in 18th. Niall McBride in 19th, and Henry Briscon in P20.
Final few cars: Cesar Menzado, Charles Anti, Jesse Akar, and then David Soranzo. So he came into this round 2nd place in the standings, but the Frenchman going to be leaving fairly disappointed. Didn't even get really much into this race, involved in a multi-car incident very early. But with that being said, it's time for a quick break here on the iRacing Esports Network. Coverage has been brought to you by RaceBot TV of round number 7 of the IndyCar iRacing Series. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after a few messages from iRacing and ourselves, and hopefully we'll get a few drivers in here for a quick chat about the race that we just watched. Well, after 225 short but very fun laps, the winner is Tim Doyle. He comes home in front of John Downing and Marco Brazil. And Sumo, I think we came into this one with lower expectations given the race that we saw at Texas, but I think it's fair to say all of these drivers here really delivered in a very entertaining one all the way to the finish.
Absolutely. Short speedways, well, they can be a bit disappointing at times, but for this one here at Richmond, I think we certainly had a fantastic one. Too many good battles, a few crashes here and there, but eventually the whole strategic element and how Tim Doyle just managed things around and worked with the worst resources to come home and finish in P1. I think that was such a spectacular sight to see. Good racing in the end.
It was indeed, and we're just waiting for some extra drivers to maybe join us in the interview room. We do have Marco Brazil, who is waiting, who obviously finished in third. We're hoping to still get Tim Doyle, John Downing to join us. And Sumo, just one more question for you, because, this was the first time at RaceSpot TV we used the brand new Timing 71 timing system, and I do believe you were using it. How did you find it?
Well, it was just superb to see the kind of information that you have the access to. Now, normally as a I have only one screen. I only have multiple different screens here and there. So I just want to maximize the kind of information that I get from each of it. And you've just got so many kinds of tabs and different information that it's just amazing to watch. It really helps you out with the broadcast, that's for sure.
Yeah, and we're very excited to be introducing that more often, and we're just getting a few more drivers into the team speak. So we'll just keep talking for a few minutes here. We wait for Tim Doyle to jump in, and Sumo, we've had 4 fun races here. We started at Belle Isle. We went over to the Texas Motor Speedway in conjunction with that return to real life racing. We also had the brand new version of Road America and the final race of June here, Richmond. And, we've mentioned it over the 4 races we've done, a very different set of tracks. And, 4 different winners have all required a lot of different diverse skill sets.
Absolutely. If there's anything I love about IndyCar, it is the fact that you go to so many different circuits, so many different cars types, in fact. And in the end, it just offers you the opportunity not only to test your skills as a driver completely, but also to put yourself up against specialists. Now, we saw Tim Doyle. He mostly comes on the short ovals like this one, and he comes in and proves that he is quite an expert over here. But for all the regular season drivers, they get a very good opportunity to test themselves against the very best and understand where they are lacking and where they can actually improve. In the end, IndyCar Series, the kind of diversity, the kind of action that we have, it just draws me in all the time. I absolutely adore it.
All right, well, while we wait for hopefully Tim to come and join us in the commentary booth, we'll jump over to our 3rd place finisher, Marco Brazil. And Sumo, why don't you take it away?
Well, firstly, Marco, congratulations on that 3rd place finish. Things got fairly tricky down in the middle for you, didn't it?
Oh, thank you, guys. It's a difficult race. I'm so excited. Funnest race. So difficult. Beginning of the race is calm. It's Andreas in front, but after the first yellow, much things in this race change. I'm very happy.
Well, Marco, it was really a very good job from you in the end. How did you manage off the traffic? Because there are so many cars right in front of you. Was it very difficult for you to get that done?
I made I not have a team, a great team, but the Europe team, I'm create the setups alone. It's so difficult to discover a downforce in this car, but I improved much this year. My focus every time is qualify cars. I'm create very good qualified cars, but I have a problem in the race with low downforce. But this year I improved much. So very happy in this race to make overtakes, to able in the traffic. Então for me is very good.
Very good indeed. And Marco, one final question for you about the strategy. A lot of people struggle with understanding whether they should go for fresh tires or old ones. How did you manage it? And in the end, of course, you seem to get quite a good result.
Uh, I'm the same strategy of the Team Doyle in the beginning of the race. The yellow flag destroyed. I made 2 laps behind the leaders uh, and work with the weight checker is negative, positive, turn 1 negative, turn 3, 4 positive. Is every the time they change the weight checker and front whole bars to car go more uh, proximally in the yellow line to make a more speed and incredible much cars spinning cars in the wall you think reflect to pass the cars.
Well, it certainly was a very eventful race. Once again, Marco, thank you so much for joining us over here, and congratulations, I'm sorry, on that third place result. I'm sure you'll be very happy with that.
Thank you guys, thank you, you Somil, Arjuna, for the broadcast this category in the car. Is very happy for your workers. It's much fun home here.
That, ladies and gentlemen, was Marco Brazil. Clearly very happy with that third place finish. And Arjuna, who are we getting on board next?
So we were hoping for the winner, Tim Doyle, to be joining us, but unfortunately having some team speak issues. So instead, what we're going to do is jump over to Adam Crane. You finished in 4th position, Adam, and you made the choice to come in and get some new tires on that final pit stop. And, you may not have gotten up to the front and battling for the lead, but I think it's fair to say that that strategy call definitely played out a little better than if you had maybe tried to stay out there a few more laps.
Yeah, I'm really happy that that taking tires there worked out and didn't cost me with any other cautions that we were mostly green to the end. What really sucks is that I got a exiting closed pit penalty after I made that stop, so I had to let all the other lap cars pass. So I probably lost about I don't know 2 or 3 seconds just in the gap that I had to make up because of that penalty. So I might have been a little further up and had a little more opportunity at Marco, but. Yeah, all in all, a good race, a top 5 I'll take, but a little disappointing nevertheless.
Yeah, I'm sure that, I was just looking at the standings coming into this one, and, you've kind of been slowly just rising up through these, the field, because coming into this one, you were in 3rd place, and, obviously there were times they're running up in 2nd that you must have been thinking that this was going to be, a really strong race for you in this championship. So, how confident were you coming into this race that this would be one of those ones where you could secure some good points? Because, this can definitely be a race which throws up all types of unknowns.
Yeah, especially with the way the week had gone with the Open Series, the number of cautions that were taking place. I definitely wanted to have a more stable set than I otherwise might, and I was able to see through just some practice sessions through the week that I had some pretty good pace, and making sure that I qualified up towards the front was important. So I was happy that I was able to put a lap together and start on the outside front row, which really helped the point situation as well.
Well, we're officially now past the halfway point of the season, I do believe. So currently still in the championship hunt, and we've got a very interesting back half to the season. We've got, tracks like Iowa, which obviously is very similar to Richmond in many ways, but, then we've got the likes of Gateway as well, but, no really big ovals, and other than obviously the big one being Indy, and a lot more road courses. So how confident are you, and how much are you looking forward to, Laguna Seca, Barber, Mid-Ohio, and even, Circuit Gilles Villeneuve, which I'm really looking forward to seeing how that one goes.
Yeah, should be a fun back half for sure. I'm, for the most part, a top 5 hero when it comes to road courses, so I should be able to bank some good points through those rounds. And for the short ovals, it'll just be a matter of surviving and banking some good points, and maybe just sort of being in the hunt there for a win or a top 5 if it creeps its head out.
Well, good job there, Adam. It was a fun race for us to watch, and definitely interesting to seeing how your pit strategy played out, and hopefully we'll see you in a few weeks' time at Circuit Jules Villeneuve.
Yeah, for sure. Hopefully put on a good show for everyone. Thanks again to everyone at RaceSpot for putting on these broadcasts. You both do a great job, and everyone associated with RaceSpot does just an awesome job.
Well, thanks. And with that, I think, Sumo, we have one more person in the wing, so I'll bring them up and I can ask a few questions here because we have, I believe, Andrew Wood who's joining us. And Andrew, I think you might have been hoping 50 laps before the end of this race that this interview would have been happening with you as the winner, but unfortunately, pit strategy just didn't play out that way for you.
Yeah, it's pretty sad, but this is my best race of the week really at Richmond between all the different Indy IR18 series. So I'm a little bummed that I couldn't come away with my first IIS win, but especially the broadcast one would be pretty cool. But yeah, I can hold my head up high that I actually had a good race and I still finished top 6.
So obviously Team Talent had a very strong setup this week because we saw Andreas get the pole position, run very strong at the beginning, and then, once you got out front, you kind of just took over from him. Obviously we saw a few of your teammates having a bit more issues further back, but, how important is it having that many guys who are able to work on a setup and really just help build up the team that little bit more?
Yeah, Team Talent's known pretty well for their short oval sets. We usually, we're very strong in Milwaukee, we're strong in Richmond, we're strong in Iowa. These are all tracks that just tend to suit us, actually. So, when putting a car setup together, it's definitely something that I would consider for sure. It was nice to have Andreas around. I battled with him a bit. I wasn't going to really make any moves on him, to be honest, but the opportunity kind of presented himself when he was a little slow out of 4, so I just kind of went for it. Actually, it was out of 2, and I went for it in 3.
Well, I think it was safe to say that a lot of people maybe didn't expect this race to stay so... we had a lot of action despite a number of cautions, but, I was just asking Adam about the back half to this IndyCar season where, you have Iowa and Gateway and obviously the big oval being the Indy Oval, but it's very much just kind of littered with road courses. Are you looking forward to them, or are you kind of thinking that the first half with more ovals might be where you did a few more races?
No, I'm in it for the long haul. This Friday split works for me. So if you want to laugh a little bit, last week for Road America, I signed up for the wrong race. I signed up for the open race and not the IAS race. So that's why I was absent last week. So just a little bit of a mishap there. Kind of just signed up haphazardly and walked away from the computer. And when I got into the session, I realized there's only 12 people there and not 28. So I missed out on Road America just simply for that reason. I was actually looking forward to that one because Road America is a track I tend to be pretty good at myself. So I was looking forward to it, but it just it didn't happen. But it was a good broadcast to watch at least. As for the later part of the season, I don't mind road courses. They're not really my strong suit, but I'm improving kind of every week, and the more practice I put in, the more chance that I'll be up front. So you'll see me kind of in mid-pack or so on the road courses typically, but I'm ready for the challenge to take them on for the rest of the season.
Well, in a few weeks, it will be the Circuit Jules Villeneuve, so good luck there. And, maybe not the result you wanted, but you definitely showed everyone that you've got the pace to win these things.
Yeah, that's pretty much the other thing that's making me feel pretty good right now is like, wow, I got my time at the front. People are going to know my name now, so hopefully I'll contend in some future races as well if I get lucky.
Well, hopefully we'll be there to broadcast them. That was Andrew Wood coming home in 6th place. We do have one final interview, and Sumo, it's going to be all over to you and Tim Doyle, your race winner.
Tim Doyle is here in the booth with me, and Tim, that was absolutely stunning effort over there. Just how did you manage to come back after going a lap down? I mean, we hear you're somewhat of a specialist in short ovals, but that was an insane drive, that's to say the least.
Yeah, hey guys. It's definitely my favorite track. I love the short racing and racing through traffic and stuff like that. And we have a really good car, but I wasn't sure how good it was at the start. Didn't get a lot of testing in myself, but my engineer, Niles Anders, always brings something good. But we kind of messed up in the strategy right at the start. We kind of argued back and forth on how much fuel to start with. I tried to do a lot. He said less, so we went less, and it caught me out with the caution. happened right in front of me, so it put us a lap down, put us behind. But the car was good, and we got those lucky breaks on the cautions to get back in sequence. And then after that, it was just driving the car.
I think Sumo might be having some internet issues. So, Tim, I'll carry on the torch. And, you talk about making a strategy error there, but, the undercut can be something that you can do at a track like this. And how do you balance that risk of going, potentially 2 laps down as you did versus trying to just be a little bit more aggressive in the strategy element?
Yeah, that's definitely one of the things I always look at. I would rather lose a race, with a different strategy. I never want to beat myself before the race begins, and that's kind of what we did at the start there. If you get in that situation where you have to pit on the green, you're going to be fighting back from 2 laps down, and you try to avoid that as much as possible. Even if you lose time running on old tires, you don't want to take that risk, because if you go 2 laps down, it's almost impossible to get back. So that's my strategy all the time. But the car runs better on lighter fuel, so you want to. I didn't qualify very well as usual, so I needed to make up track position. So I wasn't against going with the short fuel strategy. And who knew this race was going to go the way it did? All the races this week have been pretty caution fest, especially early, and this one went almost 60, 70 laps green, which was unusual.
Unusual indeed. And Tim, I've got a question for you. Now, normally, not a lot of people drive on short ovals, but you seem to be quite a master of them. Just how does one design a good setup for short ovals? What do you have to keep in mind, if you can explain briefly?
Well, you definitely need something that you're comfortable in, something that you feel you can push without, getting too loose, pushing to the wall. You need something that works well in traffic. Um, you tend to go with heavier downforce. You're better off with that than having the low downforce, where if you get behind somebody, you can't really do anything with them. And that's the biggest thing for me, is having pretty much as much downforce as I can. It helps with stability of the car, but it gives you a good drive off the corner as well.
Indeed. Well, Tim, do you have anyone you want to thank? Because in the end, I think that was quite a good effort from your end. Any team members, any friends, family members that you'd like to shout out to?
Yeah, definitely want to thank the team. Like I said, they put some effort in this week, building a good set. They've had some races early in the week with some success. Definitely thank my engineer, Niles Anders, who helped me through this whole race, able to overcome our hiccup there at the beginning. Thank my sponsors, Foyt Family Wines, Arizona Sports Shirts, Forum.net, Eldor Speedway. And thanks to you guys for broadcasting it.
Well, once again, Tim, that was an absolutely superb effort. Congratulations on the drive, and hopefully you have many more successful races to come. Well, that was Tim Doyle, ladies and gentlemen. And, well, commanding drive in the end by him.
Yeah, that was, you always like to see stuff like that, where a driver gets challenged and, they have to step up and really, show everybody, Sumo, just how strong they are. And, Tim talks about making a slight mistake there on the strategy. Well, at the end of the day, the more important thing is that they were able to just work around it and keep with it, and ultimately they got their reward.
They did indeed, and it's such a pleasing thing to see with a driver coming back from the toughest of circumstances and coming in, keeping all the confidence, mind you, and going ahead to take a win like that. These are the sort of stories that actually get you inspired. Not so much at this stage in sim racing, because sim racing isn't as popular, but hopefully through our broadcast and through such exciting races like this one, more people get hooked on to this one and find these stories the one that inspire them and actually go on and do it on the sim themselves.
Yeah, just a reminder, all of these races are available to the public. The IndyCar iRacing Series has, I think, 6 races every week and races 15 times a year. And this has been the end of round 7. There are 4 more races this weekend, 2 on Saturday and 2 on Sunday. So if any of you were watching and felt the urge to jump in, you can always sign up at iRacing.com and take a look at the screen there. You'll see the 4 races that we've just broadcast. We started at Belle Isle. We jumped over the Texas Motor Speedway. We then went Elkhart Lake, Wisconsin. We rounded out the month of June with Richmond Raceway. And, Sumo, we came in with an initial 4, broadcast run. We only committed to broadcasting to the end of this one. And, there's been no confirmed plans yet if coverage from RaceBot TV will continue. But it's been fun. And it's always interesting to have 4 different winners in races that require so much different skills that, you know, it was really just shown that this NTT IndyCar Series just requires that diverse touch that, you know, there are some other series that just cannot get close to.
Exactly, you just can't be a single track driver over here. In the first round in Belle Isle, you just had to navigate through the serpentine street circuits that you've got here in Detroit. Then of course we went to Texas, which requires a completely different approach in terms of a speedway. In Road America, a proper hardcore road course where your elbows out sort of battling and your strategy played a major impact. And then at Richmond, which is a speedway unlike any other in multiple different ways, whether you like it or not. And that is the thing that I like. We had different drivers going in with different skill sets, coming in and challenging the regular season drivers and showing them the kind of skills that you actually need to win at certain tracks. So in the end, we had 4 very, very exciting races. Hopefully we get to do more of these for sure. But I think if you're watching back at home, you certainly want to be watching more of these IndyCar races, because if there's one thing I've learned, these sort of diverse races, they do make sure for a very, very entertaining race, that's for sure.
Definitely. And just a reminder that the NTT IndyCar Series does return July 4th weekend. That will be from the Brickyard in a combined event with the NASCAR grid, and that's going to be very interesting to see how that works out. You've got the Xfinity cars that are also going to be running on the road layout, which is a very interesting prospect. And, you know, Sumo, just before we go, we can quickly just run down some of the next races on the schedule. I'm taking a look here. Circuit Gilles Villeneuve. We talk about Iowa, which I think hopefully, just like Richmond, is going to put on a good show. Then you got Mid-Ohio, the Indy Oval. You got Gateway, Barber, Laguna Seca. We're going to wrap it up at the Indy Road Course. So there's a lot of variety in there. A lot more road courses than ovals. And when you consider the ovals, very much focused on that short track kind of racing.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm just going to drop a very controversial statement right here. Now, it may be against what the normal beliefs that people may have, but I feel that the American road courses are far better than the ones back in Europe. When you have the likes of Road America, you have the likes of Virginia, and hey, come on. I enjoy them far more. When you've got Virginia, you've got Mid-Ohio, they are so much fun to drive. And for me personally, these are the tracks that I enjoyed the most. So if there's anything, these drivers will be having such a fun time. And on the broadcast, well, hopefully we have some fun races as well.
Yeah, well, I think we're going to have to talk a little bit more after this one because...
Hey, come on. They're good. Trust me. They're a lot of fun. That's for sure.
They're definitely a lot of fun. But with that being said, it's time to wrap up here. Live coverage on the iRacing Esports Network has been brought to you by RaceSpot TV. We've had 4 very fun races, and this final one marked by the introduction of that Timing 71 live timing system, which I'm very excited to see how that progresses in the future. My name has been Arjuna Kankipati. Joining me has been Sumil Arora, and hopefully in a few weeks' time we'll see you from the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve in Montreal for another road course race. But with that, the halfway point of the IndyCar iRacing Series has been ticked over, and Hugo Olsen is going to continue to take that championship lead, and let's see how that one plays out. But for now, have a good weekend, and we'll see you next time.